Marijuana. To most of us, it's definitely not a good thing, with its inherently bad reputation due to its destructive nature. This is why some people usually tend to stay away from them. Despite that, however, a lot of people still use them illegally as well as sell them in secret. Regardless of the banning of cannabis in countries such as America, there are still a great number of users every day getting convicted, meaning people are still having them despite being illegal. With that in mind, imagine how many people would flock to marijuana companies once it starts being legalized. Quite recently, some countries have established the legalization of marijuana for either medical or recreational purposes. Because of that, many investors have taken an interest in weed stocks, without considering much about the disadvantages it holds. Many investors, especially new ones, invest blindly on things based on their face value without even consulting financial advisors first or doing the research themselves. Needless to say, there are 100 things that could go wrong if you don't think about your investments carefully, which is why it's important that you know what these consequences are in order to prevent them in the long run. Hey, welcome to Stock Market Mate. Today we'll talk about weed stocks and what you should know before buying them. Before we get into it, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell to help us beat the YouTube algorithm. If you're done with that, then let's get right into it. Before anything, let's discuss a little bit about the background as well as the history of marijuana, how it started and why it was deemed dangerous and illegal in the first place. The history of marijuana. Marijuana, or more commonly known as pot, originated in Asia around 500 BC and was traditionally used as an herbal medicine. It has then started growing popular in Europe, Africa, and eventually America. The cultivation of marijuana in the US dates back to the early colonization. It was said that it came as a form of hemp plantations in the 17th century through American colonies. However, tracing the first emergence of smokable marijuana in the United States is actually harder to do, as there are more than one type of cannabis in actuality. There's the Cannabis sativa L, Cannabis sativa without the L, Cannabis indica, and the Cannabis ruderalis. Hence, it was difficult to actually tell at what point marijuana really started to emerge as a narcotic in America. Nonetheless, before it was criminalized, marijuana was used for treating illnesses such as headaches, earaches, and even reported to have been effective at suppressing sexual longing. It was only 1937 did marijuana really become illegal. The Controlled Substances Act, passed in 1970, officially banned all forms of cannabis, including medical. The reason for this are numerous, but among them are political and racial. Furthermore, in 1938, cannabis was made illegal in Canada. A lot of other countries began to criminalize the use and possession of marijuana years onwards. However, in recent years, many countries have decided to legalize the use of cannabis again, including Canada, Slovenia, Croatia, Britain, Germany, etc. This eventually led to marijuana companies going public, and a lot of investors began to invest in weed stocks, seeing as how the use of cannabis has surged throughout the years. Weed stocks and the legalization of marijuana in certain countries. Weed stocks are simply stocks that revolve around the trading of weed or marijuana legally. Canada's first ever marijuana ETF was launched in April 2017, which has been well received by investors in cannabis stocks. There are already many weed stocks in the stock market after the legalization of marijuana in certain countries. Some examples are Green Thumb Industries, Grow Generation, and Jazz Pharmaceuticals. Since legalization, many people can now use marijuana for both medical and recreational reasons. Patients who use medical cannabis usually have a prescription from a physician to use cannabis or cannabis extracts to treat health conditions. On the other hand, recreational cannabis consumers buy marijuana or cannabis extracts solely for fun and usually must be 18 or older, as well as live in a province that permits recreational use of the plant. The federal government still prohibits marijuana use in the United States. However, more than 30 states have legalized recreational and/or medical marijuana. Nonetheless, cannabis companies in the US are thriving, while companies in Canada are struggling, despite the plant already being legal throughout the country. It has become increasingly difficult for Canadians to access cannabis due to a lack of supply outpacing demand. Furthermore, since the demand is pretty high worldwide, most investors would likely want to invest in weed stocks for more money. This, however, has consequences as mentioned before and should be taken into careful consideration, as there is still a long way to go for marijuana to be completely legal in other countries. The problem with weed stocks. But what are the consequences in investing in weed stocks? Well, many investors buy weed stocks without researching them first, which can lead to a lot of problems. Once you do your research, you'll find a lot of these marijuana companies don't provide more information about the business other than their location perhaps. Such crucial information includes their marketing strategy, how they generate profits, etc. For all we know, some of these companies have never gained profits before. As a matter of fact, there are places where you cannot sell these marijuana products, which can gravely affect the business of the company. Many weed investors do not get to know these facts first before jumping into the bandwagon, which makes weed stocks not such a good idea to invest in as of now, as we don't really have good enough reasons to have investors purchase them immediately. 3 concerns regarding weed stocks. With that being said, here are 3 concerning matters regarding marijuana companies that every investor should know before investing in weed stocks. Take note that these are only meant to draw attention to concerns and risks in order to educate investors regarding the subject of weed stocks so that they'll know more about what they're putting their money into. Valuation. The first concern that we'll look into is valuation. When companies aren't making any money, valuing them becomes difficult because negative numbers confuse valuation models. Nevertheless, there are other metrics that can help you determine the value of a company relative to others. One example is the price-to-sales ratio. It is calculated by dividing the company's stock price by its sales price per unit of production. Though it's just a rough estimate, you're at least able to compare what you're paying for a dollar of sales to company competitors. Production risk. The second main concern is about production risk. It seems like every company is growing at a tremendous rate and trying to gain the advantage of being the first to get market share so their future will be guaranteed. It's almost as if these companies think they could be the ultimate producer in the country. To put it bluntly, it looks as if these companies are investing in an inordinate amount of money and capacity as if they will be the top producer, which might lead them to overproduce. Operation risk. Lastly, there's the concern regarding the operation risk of these marijuana companies. Let's face it, most of these companies are not really making that much money. In fact, a lot of them are actually losing money annually. Hence, if in the future poor execution of the strategy occurs, there will be no cushion to help them. Furthermore, regulations are also an issue. Since a lot of countries haven't legalized the use of cannabis, such as in the US, expansion into these countries will be difficult for these companies in countries that have already legalized marijuana. In conclusion, those are the 3 main problems that we have regarding these marijuana companies. Quite frankly, there are more problems that we haven't mentioned in this video, but it'll take too long to list them out as well. It's not a good idea to blindly invest in these stocks without doing any thorough research on whether the numbers work out. However, if you're already familiar with these concerns and risks and have taken the time to make a careful decision of what to do and still want to invest in weed stocks, that's totally fine. Just remember to be cautious and always do your research. Always be open to these kinds of concerns as well as to broaden your perspective and help you out in your investing journey. Well, that's about it for today. If you found this video helpful, kindly click the like and subscribe button. Also, you might want to leave a comment below. We love hearing from you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. If you enjoyed this video, you're going to want to watch one of these 2 videos right here. Enjoy!